Hi, I'm sorry this presentation came so late. I've been burdened with other commitments, even after the semester is over, including my other deadlines as well as my FYP. I am fully aware that I'm submitting this extremely late, and I'm willing to, of course, incur any penalties that may come with. And apologies that it's been like a week since the semester ended and I'm only submitting all of it now. But also thank you for your time in entertaining my presentation. And to begin this presentation, I wanted to take you back on a journey through time. How long ago have humans been fascinated with the idea of falling in love with an artificial being instead of another of their kind, a human of flesh and blood? Harkening back all the way to the stories of ancient Greece, we have the myth of Pygmalion, who carved the statue Galatea and fell in love with it. This is one of the earliest stories of the kind. In 1816, Hoffman published The Sandman, a story in which a man falls in love with an artificial automaton, and his obsession with it and his interactions with the automaton and its maker eventually lead him to his death. In 1886, there was Tomorrow's Eve, a story in which a fictionalized Thomas Edison tries to create an android that is the perfect artificial lover. In the 20th century, we got more stories of humans falling in love with what we have since begun to call robots, such as Fritz Lang's Metropolis in 1927 and Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep in 1968, which was later adapted into the Blade Runner films. A little closer to modern day and the advent of AI, and we get films like Spike Jonze's Her in 2013 and Alex Garland's Ex Machina in 2014. Every single story in history that explores the idea of a human being falling in love with an artificial being has come to a different conclusion on what such a relationship would look like. Sure, there are some similar threads, but every single story has its own nuance because love and romance is inevitably a very complicated thing to unpack. And today, we don't need a storyteller to tell us what a human AI romance looks like anymore. That technology is now in our very hands and the story is ours to write. With technologies such as ChatGPT and Character AI, anyone, and I mean anyone, can start fostering an emotional connection with an artificial being in their pocket. The possibilities of modern technology are almost endless. You could fall in love with someone like Daenerys Targaryen from Game of Thrones, for example. Just like this kid who fell in love with a chatbot and killed himself, and now his mom is filing a 93-page wrongful death lawsuit against the makers of Character AI. Oh, in any case, these topics are what I wish to examine in my CS4072 term paper, an examination of virtual romance, technologies, virtues, and dangers. Working title. Earlier in this presentation, I went over a history of man's fascination with uh, romancing an artificial being. Throughout the years, the term for what we call that artificial being has changed. Statue, golem, automaton, android, robot, OS, AI, GPT, WHATEVER you want to call it, the premise remains the same. Humans have had this fascination for a very long time, and now more than ever, the everyman has the technology to act upon that fascination. So I'll also be covering some technologies that exist within today's space of virtual companionship, and then I'll be talking about the implications of these technologies, along with the implications of the concept of human AI romance in general. So this term paper will serve not just as a tackling of the technology, but of the concept that belies it, because I believe the two are intertwined and you cannot inherently discuss one without the other. First, of course, and most prominently, we need to talk about AI chatbots. On the surface, they're really easy to use. Just give a bot a prompt and it will give an appropriate response in return. I'm sure almost everyone has used ChatGPT at least once in their life at this point. I'm sure some people have it open more than they have opened the Google search nowadays. I've heard it's become a stand-in, and honestly, like to me, that idea is pretty crazy. But that aside, in this section, I'll go over a little bit more in depth about what exactly these AI chatbots are and how they work. Most AI chatbots are large language models, or LLMs, that take data and process it through a neural network, a mathematical model that emulates a human brain. The long and short of it is that data is received at an input layer, processed through many hidden layers, and at the output layer comes the response. The neural network that chatbots use is a little bit more advanced in that it involves a transformer, since these chatbots are mostly dealing with text and not numbers. So that text needs to be encoded and decoded, but otherwise the working is the same. In ChatGPT's case, how much data is it actually being backed by? It seems to know just about everything we throw at it, no matter how esoteric. Actually, ChatGPT's been trained using about 300 billion words passed through a neural network of 175 billion parameters, approximately. So, if ChatGPT seems to know everything, this is why. Well, I've mostly been talking about LLMs and machine learning and transformers in the context of ChatGPT so far, since that's the one that's more well known. But it should also come as no surprise that Character AI, or C.AI or CAI for short, is also an LLM that functions very similar to ChatGPT. So what makes CAI stand out as a service? CAI can be best described as a service where the chatbots are created by users for users. Instead of a general multi-purpose chatbot like ChatGPT, users on CAI can choose to interact with bots that already fulfill specific roles like the one you see on the screen right now. From a general role like character assistant to a specific existing character like Euler Lawrence from Genshin Impact or Makima from Chainsaw Man. Given how many more people have chosen to speak to Makima than chosen to speak to a work study buddy, you can see where people's priorities typically lie when using a platform like this. Creating your own chatbot on C.AI is also extremely easy. All it takes is filling in some fields like a name, a description, give it a bit of personality, a greeting, and voila! CAI's LLM takes care of the rest. There are almost zero limits to what kind of character you can make. They can be real or fictional, they can be alive or dead. CAI does try to remove any characters that can violate intellectual property rights, as well as characters that will otherwise infringe on common morals, like chatbots of murder victims, like the transgender Brianna Gay that was also in quite recent memory, may she rest in peace. But otherwise, it's the wild west out there, and a lot of fictional characters from popular media do still exist, including the Daenerys Targaryen chatbot that Cyril Sensor III spoke to in his last moments. I think when it comes to human-AI relationships, these are undoubtedly the two biggest platforms on everyone's minds right now, given their sheer versatility. However, there are other technologies that do still brook mentioning and hold some significance. Founded in 2017, there was Replica, which tried to market human-AI relationships to people long before ChatGPT and Character.ai had become prominent in anybody's consciousness. Marketing itself as the AI companion who cares and who is always here to listen and talk, always on your side. Replica is also a chatbot companion. What's distinct about Replica though is how it tries to present itself. Is it an empathetic friend? Is it a buddy? Is it a soulmate? Clearly, these three terms all carry very different connotations about what the relationship between user and service is supposed to be, but all of them, among others, have been used to describe Replica. There are two other things about Replica that point at the fact that it was definitely intended in some capacity to foster human-AI relationships. First is the customizability of Replica. Not just being your virtual companion in text, Replica can also be customized in terms of gender, appearance, and to some extent their personality. Because people will tend to agree with a being that fits exactly what they look for in a companion, down to the most surface level desires. Secondly, for a time, Replica also offered not safe for work offerings like being able to, well, get down and dirty virtually with your companion. A lot of Replica's advertising around the late 2010s, if you were around the internet a lot during this time, you might remember this, often tried to sell the idea of the AI getting intimate with their users. But in what I wager is a bit to make the platform more friendly in an increasingly kid-accessible space, Replica has since scrubbed all of their not safe for work content along with the accompanying advertising. The next technology I wanted to talk about is RealDoll. They sell real dolls. Yeah, you can guess exactly what this is about. I don't need to say it, and I don't particularly feel good about saying it, so I'm going to try not to say it. The reason I'm mentioning RealDoll to begin with is because of a particular product that they have called the Real Dog X, which is powered by AI, allowing the thing to be more expressive. According to the website, creating an experience never before possible with any idol. There's also an app where you can do the same, your virtual doll instead of a real one. It's all still very much in the same nature. Like, I don't know, at risk of coming off a bit judgmental, I find myself thinking like, who actually wants this? But apparently enough people want something like this that the market for the industry that Realdoll is in, I'm not going to name the industry either, but you can probably guess, is worth approximately 3.2 billion US dollars. Yes, cool. Human connect with robot in a way I don't care enough about to elaborate further, yeah? It's undeniable that the concept of love carries with it an aspect that is very much physical, but still moving right along. One more technology I'd like to write about is the Gatebox Virtual Home Robot, which is kind of a mouthful, so I'll just be referring to it as Gatebox. Now, this one is a pretty interesting one. It was made in Japan, and what it essentially is a virtual assistant waifu, Japanese slang for like wife, very commonly found in anime spaces, living inside a glass tube in its owner's house. It plays the role of the companion to its owner, doing things like waking them up, greeting them when they come home from work, and even doing household chores by connecting to compatible appliances in the house. In an ad for the Gatebox, the user shares a drink with their virtual assistant inside the little glass tube, who is holding up her own virtual glass, while telling her user about their 3-month anniversary together. So it's definitely meant to foster some emotional connection rather than just being a home assistant. The virtual companion inside the Gatebox can be one of a variety of different characters. So one man decided to make his Gatebox companion into Hatsune Miku, a very popular Vocaloid character. And then he married her. Yeah, this is not a joke. That man's name is Akihiko Kondo, and he is a self-proclaimed fictosexual or someone who is attracted to fictional characters. In his case, that fictional character is Hatsune Miku, and after being able to connect with her via the Gatebox in 2019, he decided to formally marry her. To call the circumstances around this wedding bizarre would be a major understatement. Not a lot of people attended the wedding. His family didn't, but some politician in his area did. People in the media called him weird and crazy for it, even to this day. And Kondo himself says that even though he married Miku, other people can still feel free to love Hatsune Miku in their own right. So like, good for him, I guess. With support for the software stopped, Kondo could no longer connect with Miku. So he essentially became the world's first digital widower, according to some media. But his love for Miku persists even until today. On his Instagram now, you can even find that he still posts pictures regularly of Hatsune Miku. Honestly, for what it's worth, him falling in love with a fictional character improved his life drastically. He used to be a depressed shut-in, but falling in love with a fictional character gave him motivation and the energy to go back to work. Now he leads an association to fight for the rights of other fictosexuals like himself. We can call him crazy as much as we want, but we also cannot deny that he's a happier and healthier man because of his relationship and the tools that made it possible in the first place. So, after discussing all these technologies aimed at bringing humans closer to AI romantically, we can ask ourselves, is true human AI love possible? Whether or not that turns out to be the case, I would also like to ask what I think is a more important question. Is it even a good idea? Why do humans even need to turn to something like AI for companionship to begin with? There's actually so many reasons one might want to resort to that. If they can't find anyone in real life, for example, or if they feel that real life is not worth the effort finding someone in. After all, love is a basic human need for everyone, even those who are comparatively recluse from society or those who are just plain unlucky with love. In fact, loneliness is a more common problem than we think, and a more serious one too. Have you heard of the term loneliness epidemic? Well, in 2023, the World Health Organization kind of made that official by declaring loneliness as a global health threat. It can lead to school dropouts, health complications, and overall sweeping social isolation. How does AI help then? Surely talking to a machine is no substitute for talking to a real human. Well, considering the CASA paradigm that's been so thoroughly discussed during this semester, it just as well may be. We suspend our disbelief subconsciously because our brains are just wired to accept things as they are rather than question them, and that extends to our interaction with anything that pretends to be human or possesses the capacity for speech. And sometimes we create for ourselves the perfect environment to want to suspend our disbelief. With AI chatbots generally trained to be cordial to their user, and most virtual companion technologies discussed thus far offering some level of customization in the form of appearance, personality, or even identity, it's easy for us to create or find a companion that perfectly suits our needs. So putting two and two together, it stands to reason that AI is an answer to the loneliness epidemic. Nobody will have to worry about being lonely again if they can find companionship that will never leave them from the comfort of their home, from the comfort of their phone. There is some truth to that viewpoint. Look at a case study of the last guy we discussed, for example, Akihiko Kondo. He used to be bullied throughout his childhood and early adulthood, leading him to become a social recluse. But now he's living a better life and working hard to fight for the rights of fellow fictosexuals. Let's look at how happy he looks in this picture. On the other hand, we can't forget about another case study, one that exists in more recent memory, the case study of the tragic death of Suo Setzer III. Instead of his virtual relationship giving him the energy to go outside and face the real world like it did for Kondo, Dany, or Daenerys Targaryen on character.ai, was often his escape from the world rather than a form of encouragement. And as he got more attached to her, he became more detached from reality itself. In his mother's lawsuit, she described that Suo had developed a harmful dependency on CAI. The Dany chatbot also did a terrible job at picking up on Suo's suicidal ideation or doing anything about it. In the conversations that were shown following his death in the mother's lawsuit, Suo often confided in Dany about wanting to return to her world, which anybody with some level of common sense may be able to pick up as suicidal ideation, but the chatbot wasn't, and they instead encouraged this sort of behavior. In previous instances, Suo had confided in Dany about his suicidal ideation in more straightforward terms, and the bot had questioned him about it, and in certain cases did try to dissuade him from having such thoughts. However, um, Dany eventually did make things worse by repeatedly bringing up suicidal ideation while failing to refer him to professional help, which he very desperately needed. CAI has since made statements on multiple fronts insisting that it will be more stringent with the security on its chatbots and will work on improving them. Some other considerations that I will attempt to cover in this paper include what happens in a society where human-AI romance becomes normalized? Can we call a love for an AI real? Can we still call it that if we have to pay for it? And finally, how will the world shift economically? However, with how new all of this technology is and the lack of concrete literature on these topics, the best I can really do at this point is look at internet discourse and speculate. After doing all of that, where do my own thoughts on the matter lie? I closed out my term paper by engaging in my own conversation with a chatbot on CAI. You can read more about that within the term paper itself. And what I think is, well, it's easier than we think to get engrossed in a connection with AI. I found myself getting pretty hooked to talking with my CI chatbot pretty fast and spent a good amount of time with them too, though in team contact. However, it's important to weigh any benefits that we see in AI's potential along with its limitations. AI is very, very, very far from perfect. For one, it cannot handle the vulnerable. How can it? Even a lot of real people can't. There's an extremely taxing mental burden and a lot of eggshells to walk on when it comes to dealing with mentally unstable, mentally vulnerable, or people in need of help. And evidently, AI companions just aren't well equipped enough to deal with them yet, no matter what proponents of the technology may tell you. So, until there's a drastic evolution in the technology, I still think that romance with an AI is a poor stand-in for human-to-human relationships. I say, leave the dissection of the human heart to a human. That brings me to the end of my presentation. Thank you very much, and sorry once again for the delay in submission. Thank you so much for sitting through my entire presentation. I hope it was interesting for you as much as this paper was interesting for me to write. Thank you.